I'm going to open up my iPad for a second, so please bear with me. So, as we got started, and I was given the privilege to share with you some of my thoughts on community and economic development, I thought, what do I really want to share with these fine ladies and gentlemen? And I thought, you know what? I want to talk about nonsense. Absolute and utter nonsense, and the power of absolute and utter nonsense, because I believe nonsense is one of the most magical things that can completely change communities forever and change lives and create big visions for people. I don't think we have enough nonsense and whimsy in the world around us. So to start, let me give you a little deep dive into my belief in nonsense. So first and foremost, my children and as a family, we have family photos wearing horse heads that they often like to wear around town. Randomly go grab coffee in the morning, we'll walk, move a half mile. My one son, who's 10, decides he just wants to wear this and thinks it's very normal as he wanders through the community. One day, someone at school called one of my sons a nerd. He's 12, he loves Einstein, he reads weird books, he talks about crazy things, he has big dreams about opening a university at the cross-section of quantum physics and sociology because he's weird, and someone called him a nerd. He said, that's a good name, because his dad has a hat that says nerd that he had custom made that he can wear through airports, and people they don't know quite what to think. As you're wandering through wearing a nerd, you're like, that's a bad name. No, that's a great name. My son, additionally, is a fun one. This is a self-portrait he made of himself, with his head exploding, full of all sorts of colors shooting out the top of it. You can't see it, but it's one of my favorite coffee cups. And on the front of his shirt, it says nerd, proudly that he drew it on there. And this is his self-portrait when all the other kids in class had to make their self-portraits. I am very proud of this coffee mug. I also, something else fun, I was sitting on a plane just the other day, and I give you this background to really emphasize, I try and find ways to publicly celebrate the awkwardness we all try and hide. The flight attendants on Southwest recently, I was flying back from Texas on Sunday. The flight attendants said in their typical, hey, make sure you buckle your seatbelts and air masks first and all the things, right? And then these ones are like kind of funny, and they said, next we're going to walk around and make sure that everyone's wearing matching socks as we walk through and look at your seatbelts. And I thought, I'm going to get kicked off the plane, because I wear mismatched socks every single day. And so every day, it doesn't matter if I'm wearing shorts, it doesn't matter what day it is, I wear dress socks that go up a little bit and they never match. And people don't know what to do with it. I actually think it's a solution to two things. One, having to match socks in the laundry is an incredible waste of time, I've discovered. And it actually doesn't make sense because most often they're under your pants. But two, my children have now decided that every holiday they give me weird socks. And so I have Einstein and Gonzo on today for you. Both gifts from my children. And I love weird. I love nonsense. I think whimsy and nonsense are an absolute superpower and is core to who we are as people. And I think it slowly but surely gets murdered in society. If you look at it as children, you know, we had this wild big mind where we would do things like build forts in the woods and they felt like mansions. We had our friends out there, and do you ever remember grabbing like that lamp from the basement or a carpet square or that old bucket of paint, you painted something and you felt like, well, I'm home. This is my empire. And then you come up with some random game and you're making the rules in real time with your friends, or you'd imagine some career that didn't exist. It's core to who we are as people, is this power of being able to make up things and to live in a world with nonsense. However, at some point, we go from looking at the clouds and seeing characters in the clouds to slowly but surely nonsense kind of gets squeezed out of us. And it's systems that try to scale. Look, I get it. We're trying to figure out how do we educate more people? How do we keep society in order? How do we do these things that keep structure and rhythm? We don't have time for nonsense, right? Because we got to get some things done. And so at some point, I remember for me, a very distinct moment where nonsense and even curiosity and the ability to question was just completely smashed out of me. Somehow I found it and I got back to it, by the way. I reclaimed my nonsense. But I was probably 8, and I was going to my Bible class at First Presbyterian Church, a little kid. Went in there, we're doing a felt board. The lady put something on the felt board and she asked some question. I do not recall the question, but who recalls felt boards? Yeah, pivotal, right? It's like the old school PowerPoint. And so I'm sitting there, and this lovely woman asks a question. And I say something. And the look she gave me was like, I just used the Lord's name in vain and kicked a dog. And that was coming from an honest place. And then she yelled at me, she dragged me to my parents. I don't even remember what I said, but I was trying to answer the real question, but I answered it really wrong. And it wasn't coming from a place that was bad. I thought that's what I was supposed to say. And I remember this complete confusion, how the thing was like handled, and instead of conversation and discussing it and unpacking it and taking the time to understand where this little weird 8-year-old was coming from, we don't have time for that. We gotta get through the felt board, and you are a disruption to what's going on right now. So let's keep moving. And there's this weird like little flag in my mind, right? And as I got older, I paid attention to systems and I watched people around me slowly fall in line. And then as a society and culture, we start to normalize getting rid of nonsense. And I realized as I got older, good nonsense, it is missing from most people's lives. Like drastically. However, you can't kill it. It just sneaks out at night and does weird things. So seriously, either it's in their minds, or like we get together and it hangs out. And then people with businesses have found ways to make you pay them a premium so you can like moonlight with your nonsense. If you look at things like sporting events, we paint ourselves. We go to these big arenas and we stand there and we scream, we did it! And we do these chants and people cheer. That's not normal. At all. In fact, that we're like, everything else in life, we're like, don't be weird. It's Saturday, college football, blah, Alabama. That's weird. Super weird. And it's cool because it gives me hope. Movies? Think about the movie industry. Half the stories that you get told, they're weird. And you buckle up for it and you like sell 2 hours of your time to this thing. Pay a premium and stare at a wall of light that tells you a story that makes no sense. But somehow in the end you're like, yes, this filled me up. I'm alive again. You turn to your friends and you talk about, what if our life was like that? That would be weird, and cool. And it sparks that little thing inside of you. The video game industry. It is taking your students and adults by storm in your communities. It's a grand adventure where their pulse goes up. They get to imagine again. Have a vision for a second of what they might be. Take risk. Be bold. Be nonsensical for 6 hours in the basement. Whatever it looks like. But that is literally a massive, fast-growing industry that's just serving our hunger for a mission, a purpose, and some nonsense. Not to mention, I'm not going to make you raise hands, but lotto tickets. Romance novels. Anything that takes us out of our norm where we're like, maybe that might happen for me. I'm going to spend a few bucks on lotto tickets. And I'm going to imagine for a while this better future world. I will buy 900 jet skis and ride them all on the third Thursdays of this month and go to my private island. Nonsense, right? We buy these in hopes that actually hits. Why? Because the world around us has commercialized nonsense into something that's really disgusting. We turned over the keys like idiots. It's actually really scary to understand that around you, what percent of people actually are living lives that they are proud of, that they're marching towards their future where they believe, hey, I have hope, I have an end game that I believe in. Maybe 2%, I think that might be generous of our cities for all of us. That's super scary. We'll get into the data in a second we could talk about that I'm sure most of you are very familiar with. Around deaths of despair, loneliness, obesity, depression, not quite working out for us. So if we know that, and then we look at the things and the activities that we're very familiar with, economic development, education, workforce training, they're very serious activities. And the majority of them are enrollment-based. It's an interesting thing. When I say enrollment-based, there's not a lot of room for hanging out or belonging or like picnic with your friends building forts when it comes to economic development. That's an interesting cross-section. Because I believe that there could be a way, and I'll explain it to you, running through some slides, and then take Q&A. I want to save time for about 20 minutes of question and answer because I think that's way more important than anything else I'm probably going to say to you. I believe there's a way that we can recapture nonsense. And we can wake people up from their homes where they're stuck on their phones, whatever, looking for like their pulse to go up, and we can build forts again. And it can infuse itself into economic development, it can infuse itself into community development, it can build stronger communities, stronger economies, more resilient places where people love their neighbors. They look at each other, and the first line is not, what do I think about you of judgment, but you now understand what that person wants to do, their big dreams, their crazy ideas. And you view them as that, and I want to help that person do that thing. And it changes how we do community and economic development very quickly. This has been my obsession, by the way. I have spent 10 years working with high school and middle school kids, even before I got into this ecosystem stuff. At one point, one of our campaigns got banned from the school districts because it was considered gang-related activity. Because all the kids, like thousands of kids, were wearing white t-shirts on the first week of school, because we told them all, don't wear brands, let yourself be your brand, God forbid. Don't fall into trying to fit in with everybody, but like be authentically you. And it caught on like wildfire in the district. This is dangerous. What is happening? Kids are being authentic and not fitting into the zone. So I spent 10 years doing that, and I asked the question, well, why don't kids behave? Because parents want to behave, churches want to behave, like don't do drugs, don't have sex, don't cuss. Things that really, at the end of the day, like seem pretty tempting if your life's boring anyways, let's be frank. You giggle, but it doesn't, and that's why the society sucks right now. But let's take a second and ask the bigger question. If those are things they want to do, why? Because they don't have something that's bigger than that. They don't have something they believe in. They don't have agency. They don't have a hope, a vision, and a goal, and friends, and in a community. Even if they do have it, they don't have a place where they can explore that. Go hang out in the fort and talk openly about these things. And that's crucial. To have that social system, that social infrastructure that allows you to explore your nonsense with your friends, and then you can make better decisions about learning new skills, about going to bed on time, about drinking water, God forbid, about showing up for yourself. You have to have something you believe in. If not, why? Go back to playing video games, because out there, it's not going to happen. No one actually does this, apparently. We all stay lonely. Thank you, Vivek Murthy. And we're a hot mess. So I think the real answer to how we get out of this mess is nonsense. And let me explain it. I believe it also can be done at a lower cost than most interventions. That's where it's going to get crazy. Now, before I get into the slides, I want to tell one brief story, because I still have like 40 minutes. Okay, good, I'm on time. Okay. We forgot that inventions are ridiculous. We forgot that the process of entrepreneurship, that the tables, the carpet, my coffee mug with my kid's painting on it, that thing, the lights, we don't live in awe. We became consumers, not creators. We forgot that like everything around us is like from this alchemy out of this magic rock. One of the best exercises to do with people, and we go through multiple essays on first understanding, do humans matter? It's a fun exercise, because if they don't, like, let's have another conversation, but they do. And then the other essay on, how do you flourishing in a community? What does that look like? And who do you need to become? In that process, when you get through the whole stack of understanding, you make all these decisions, you want to be someone who has hope and value and beauty to the world, not hurt and pain. You want to take care of this self to help you contribute to that. And when you get to the last part, it's like, and why? And why? And why? Well, because you have unique problems in your own life and you have the power to change them. But do I? When you believe you're a consumer, you don't. But when you start to step back and realize every single thing around you came from this earth. Like literally alchemy and magic with this giant floating rock thing we're all riding on through this crazy thing we don't understand, and that everybody has the power to play with it, then you can make things out of it. And that starts to change a paradigm. Most people don't think about that. They're literally rolling through life just like that hungry hippos, just eating whatever's in front of them. Content, food, entertainment, and just like, please stop the pain. You're like, that'll never get there. Instead, realize you can make things. And a friend of mine, Dan Lynch, he told me this story one time, that his father took him in San Francisco down to like this little weird electronics store. And Dan is, I believe, still alive, but he's on his way out of this earth. Like, could be any day. Known him for years, he's been a mentor, he's an older man. And Dan tells me he was with his father in San Francisco. His dad walks with him down to this electronics store, and they're standing in front of the store, and he says, Dan, someday, little Danny, you and I are going to stand right here, and we're going to watch the World Series on a box. And little Danny looks up and goes, my dad has lost his mind. And then within 2 years, the television was working, and they watched it on the box. And Dan was like, oh, there's magic. We just take so much for granted, and we need to flip our thoughts back to awe and understand that invention and having a goal and having a purpose and having a dream and why you wake up for every single person in our community must be how we run our social systems, our social infrastructure. I believe the physical social infrastructure without a good social architecture around it is a complete waste of time. When we advocate for social architecture all day long, faster internet, great, so YouTube doesn't buffer, woohoo! The why, ask the why. We must first start with that and then demand the faster internet because we have things to make, we have magic to do. That is cheaper and faster and better. So let me take you on a journey for how we can do that. And even using one of the things I love that I didn't know I was using, which is funny. Most of you probably know about this thing. It's called appreciative inquiry. I didn't know that either. I didn't know you guys existed. And I discovered you, and I'm so in love with extension. It's one of my favorite things. I'll tell us for another time. And then I was using this process where we'd help people discover their future, and then like let's you spend time thinking about like what's your fit in it, and then let's like work on a plan, and then hold you accountable to like doing the thing. Let's build a whole like system around that for economics and fun. And then someone was like, that's appreciative inquiry. I was like, what? I've been doing that since like I was in my 20s with high school kids. Where we do things like boxing matches with the crosstown rivals of the high school senior football player studs. And it was like a fundraiser to raise awareness about human trafficking in 2003. We had thousands of kids out there. Discover what's out there in the world. What is your role inside of it? Do you care enough to put together an agenda? Let's hold you accountable to delivering on it. And this thing works, as most of you know. So, does the green button make the thing go?
Yes.
Green means go. So I'm going to run you through a quick perspective on how does this integrate into a community. And I want you to understand this. We're getting ready to release an ebook. I will make the ebook free to all of you. That explains this in depth with some flowers and fireworks, some left brain. I hired a German to take my flower and fireworks and turn it into left brain models. Because you'd never understand what's going on in the circus up here, I promise you that. But we got a great German, and he's good. And so, as we go through this, the launch process. First, we intake. We have a team, and we're actually working on a model. I'll share these slides too if anybody would like them. But we have a model where we deliver a whole data consumption process. We look at all the traditional data, but then we also go in and do synthesis of what's going on in the community. We go out to bars. We have a budget just to buy people at the bars drinks because we want to know how they feel. We ask the question, where do the poor people grocery shop? Where do the rich people grocery shop? And we spend hours hanging out in there. Just like we're like slinging the Mormon religion. They are so good about getting into community. I'm not a Mormon, but I have such a deep respect for the mission of which they live. And I wish we would treat some of our approaches like that, like meeting people where they're at. So, in this mapping process, we intake the data, then we start doing the mapping within the community to understand, all right, what's the economic opportunity? What's the data set? What's really going on? How do people feel? Do they have hope? Who do they hate in town? That's a question we ask. It's a fun one. But we have a whole process of like 50, 60 questions we send people out to go and ask. While we're doing that, we're also evangelizing, if the community is committed to launching this process. Hey, there's a new group of nerds that are going to get together and just talk about what they hope to make and create. It's not religious, it's not political. We emphasize that up front because but we're going to gather a lot in this town. Do you want to be a part of a group like that? And you find little other people like, hey, I got ideas. Because guess what? That's a shared human condition. Y'all have made billion-dollar ideas sitting around in your houses, but you don't talk about it to anybody. And so then we tell this and people go, oh, okay, well, where can I go? Well, we have an iOS and an Android app called Build you can download. It shows you the people in your town who've also gotten involved with this. It shows you the events you can go to. You can list your projects, you can list your skills. It's pretty cool. It gives you data sets, by the way. It shows you how the interactions are happening amongst your town for mentorship. We built that. We invested in it. It's free. Hiring. Well then, if the town's committed to putting together ecosystem leads, or if they already have them, like you guys and other people, and like interns and economic development agencies and entrepreneurship programs, cool. We'll coach them and teach them this magical process, and then we go through the training. We believe there really is a top-down approach to how you build cities. Most people take that top-down one. We believe there's also a bottom-up. You build on strengths, you focus on what to grow, you lead with questions, you envision what might be, you build local agency, you build systems, you lead with culture, you have local creator encouragement, versus the other side. I don't want to read those because I don't like them. And yet that's how most cities run. It's terrifying. That's how most communities run, that's how most universities, land grants, they all run this way, top down, and yet at the same time, really what we're creating is bottom up. We diagnose the phase of the city's ecosystem. We call this, most communities, and it's a funny thing, they want an incubator or an accelerator, yet they don't have a community, like a creative community class. They've got like 5 people that are ready to go. And I made this comment yesterday, we have how many incubators at airports across America because there's surplus land. Like, let's put it there at the county airport. They have industrial roll-up doors, and it's cheap rent for people who don't scale their companies. Once in a while we'll get a win. But there's no social infrastructure, no culture, no system, no percolation is what we call this. So you have an incubator, you have an accelerator. We're creating this whole system, we call it the percolator. It's silly, but it was an aider. So everyone can link, you need an aider. So everyone needs a percolator, not an incubator, not an accelerator. And the percolator is a belonging-based approach to economic development, where you work on yourself and who you're becoming, as well as your projects. And yet you don't enroll. You kind of hang out. You're part of a thing, and you like percolate, like cowboy coffee. And you're not kicked out. And you don't have to pay rent, but you can get involved. Like, you just kind of choose where you're at in the pot. Boop, boop. Right? It's a whole kind of looser thinking approach to economic development. Now, as you see on here, we go first with looking at the critical list, the creative kernels, enterprise cluster, campus, critical, or capital and corporates, and self-sustaining ecosystem. Once you hit self-sustaining ecosystem, you're in an async approach where the whole community's running through all these small group events, you have festivals, you have activities, trainings, we stack this whole thing. The best part is, if your community does suck, which many do, let's be honest, they're rough, it's hard. When I say that, I say it with love and compassion, but honesty, it's rough. Friend of mine, I mean, look at the data in some of these communities where there are some serious drug crises going on because people are looking for an adventure. That's not cool. We need to be honest. And if we're at the bottom part of it, the best part is this is the lowest cost, highest impact, quickest emotional impact for the community. If you build a building or launch a fund, how many people does that touch? Makes the politicians happy? Everyone says, look, we have a thing. But many of them are like museums, as opposed to highly in-demand opportunities. So you can start with the bottom part of the creative kernels and kick it off in a very enjoyable way, which I'll show you. In our mapping thesis, we look at where can we get stakeholder support, industry needs, and community strengths. We build around a positive core. This positive core becomes the engine that all the events run around. Everything. 70 plus events per year. And we have a background. I built and sold 3 of my own tech companies. I have the privilege, which I believe genuine is a privilege that I earned. Worked my butt off. I know a bunch of people at Virgin, Facebook, Microsoft, the CTO's office at Microsoft, board members at OpenAI, Apple. We did the largest single state education initiative with Apple. Eric Schmidt's team, former CEO and chairman of Google. Yes, I know all those people. We work with Brookings. Yes. We work with Milken. We work with Emerson Collective. The Kaiser family office. Yeah, all those groups we know, and we're trying to figure out how do we unleash this beast. But how we did it was by finding how do we help communities build a positive core. Because you have to have stakeholder support, not only locally from the business and politicians, but also nationally. Because we're in a weird economic stack where there is a winner-take-all game happening. And so you have late-stage corporatocracy in our economic models. And so these things need to understand, partly they're throwing cash out the door because they have more money than they know what to do with. They're like, hey, don't kill us with a pitchfork or break us up. We're like, please, just keep doing your thing with the people. And yet there's a better way that we can align communities' development with corporations' impact dollars to serve their innovation interests that are authentic to the town's strengths and the stakeholder support. And we map what works. Many of you have probably seen this loop of appreciative inquiry. What gives life? What could be the vision of the future for the town, for yourself? We plan to realize the vision building on what works, empower, learn, and do together. Key inside-out ingredients. We develop what we call as a better story. The ebook is called Better, is the headline. It's not about like, we're the best, but it's about like, hey, how might we do better? We showcase success and have stakeholder support. These intersections of capital, confidence, and credibility. So crucial for a town to believe in itself. And by the way, a better story, if you want to see something funny, go to the Victoria Advocate. Victoria Advocate is a newspaper in a small town in Texas that used to be an oil and gas town that completely fell apart. Their whole downtown is popping off. It is busy again. It was empty 24 months ago. We started 18 months ago. Over 60 new companies have started in less than 18 months. Bars, restaurants, like little cool clothing shops, hardware companies that are working on new ways to analyze plastics, retirees from the large corporations that are down there, a guy working on quantum space travel, which sounds crazy, but he's working on the warp drive. He actually is the provost of the university. He found his little freak tribe, and now he's like literally building this stuff. And he's speaking at conferences all across the U.S. and he's being cited by the IEEE because he may have figured something out on how to do warp in space. It's super weird. And we have that community focused on space and energy. It's really cool. Oh, by the way, in that town, if you go to their website, Victoria Advocate, you type in Think Big Festival, which is one of our events we're going to talk about, our Innovation Collective, you will see a propaganda machine like none other. When we go, does red go back? Yes. I'm going to try it. Oh, it did. Better story. We all need a better story. I'm writing an essay right now that I'm getting ready to release. It's called How's It Going? And it plays off that good old phrase we say to each other, hey, how's it going? And you're like, great. Not saying for you, but like for some people, it's like, the world's a mess. It really isn't great. Or we're like, I'm super busy. Is that good too? I don't know. But when you look at this, and you understand, and you go to the Victoria Advocate, you look up Innovation Collective or Think Big Festival, you will see world business leaders gather to discuss the future of Victoria. And it's all these like literally great entrepreneurs and leaders with the mayor, with the college, with community members in a debate for 7 hours, charting the next 12 months of the school. K-12 school district. We have the CEO of Beats by Dre in there, a woman who scaled it from $1 to $3 billion in 6 years, along with all these other executives, investors, and entrepreneurs. And then you have pictures of all the people in town showing off their maker spirit, as one of the headlines says. And so we just hammer the newspapers with a better story. Because most often you open your newspaper, it sucks. It's not fun. So in this process of mapping and grassroots marketing, we have about 63 informal interviews, 7 stakeholder engagements, 12 local meetings with groups. I'm going to fly through this because I want to have time for conversation. Then we open and we create a what, why, how, who, and when document over 3 years. How do we get to a fully self-sustained ecosystem? How do we show you how to do that? Who's responsible for what, when, budgets, locations, a whole playbook. We have a 61-ish and growing interactive wiki that ties to a project management software. And it literally tells you on today do this, and then you're like, I don't remember what this is. Click, boom, opens up the wiki, and then like there's Q&A in there, and you can ask questions, and there's a Slack channel for all the practitioners doing this. These are all templates, by the way, that we've created over the last 10 years. We've been doing this for 9.5 years, beating our head against the wall like a bunch of idiots. We identify and or recruit local leads to the community ecosystem, meaning practitioners, and those are the people who start to roll out the events. There's the mapping and activation. We do applications, interviews, the training, a contingency period, but we launched the online group. We talked about the apps earlier on, and we also use Facebook for now, but hopefully we can get away from that. And when you get to the fireside chats, I'll jump ahead because it's not important to talk about that right now, because there's this lovely slide. I think that might be my last one. So if we look at this lovely slide, you have Discover. And there's other charts we have in the book and elsewhere. But fireside chats, what those are, it's a monthly storytelling night where we interview local leaders, superintendent, owner of the grocery store, owner of the car dealership. We start to hold up on a platform just scrappy people, the janitor who's worked in the school for like 40 years. And we ask questions. We have about 14 questions we've created over the last decade and adjusted, and it's just the hero's journey, kind of uniquely fitted for your town. It helps the community come in. We typically, depending on the community, do soda, water, coffee, wine, beer, all complimentary. We get it donated. You're amazed how many places want to do that. We've hosted it in hotels, we've hosted it in bars, we've hosted it in restaurants, we've hosted it in, you name it, art galleries, we've hosted it at universities, weird basements, backyards. Doesn't need to be fancy. Nothing ever great was, by the way. I don't know if you remember how this nation started. It's not like we organized, like, oh, the place is not quite right. We need more capital to accomplish that. Instead, it's like people writing essays and papers and standing on chairs that are, we think we should do this. And then making up fake names and then going for it. And so we launched these things very scrappily, and we start to tell the stories of people who everyone thinks are legends, and yet no one really knows the true story. So it starts to demystify the struggle and helps you understand, hey, this person is doing something great. You dream about your role, you dream about the town together. Discover, and you see what's possible, what's out there. And then you dream Coffee and Concepts. Coffee and Concepts is a twice-a-month idea flow session. These are all mapped in the playbook. And in the book, Coffee and Concepts is in a space where citizens show up, they get a free cup of coffee in the morning, and they get to share your name and why did you show up. It's actually super powerful. It's like AA for nerds. And they get to say, I'm here. And I came here because I'm here for this, and publicly get to espouse their name. Senior citizens to middle school kids show up to these events. Middle school kids get extra credit. Senior citizens feel like they belong. They get extra life. And then the middle, which is like the entrepreneurs and the 20-year-olds and the college kids and the mid-career folks who are trying to figure out, what do I really do? How do I create a better product for my company? They have a platform where they get to show up, and after we say names around the circle, and then go, hey, what happened the last 2 weeks that was wild in innovation news around the positive core, the specific vertical that we try and focus on? And hands go up around the room. Because they all want to be seen by their tribe as contributors, right? And so as they start to say, here's what we've seen, they run through their crazy ideas, they share the news, people ask questions, and we always say, hey, make it simple, because I'm stupid, the facilitator. We help the facilitators dumb it down. We say, put the cookies on the bottom shelf so the kids can steal them. Make it so simple. And so then we talk about wild news. It's like a human RSS feed. And you also get to know who in the room has a passion for what. And mark my words, the dishwasher who went to a fireside chat, who heard that person who built the IT company, got inspired, and has been studying up on cybersecurity, and shows up at 7:30 in the morning and says, "Hi, my name's Damon. And I'm here because I love IT security." Damon is no longer the dishwasher at the Italian restaurant in town, is he? Damon is obsessed with IT. And now all of a sudden, Damon raises his hand to share something about IT security. Cybersecurity. Like, this was what happened in the last 2 weeks. It's crazy. There's this new platform out there. People are like, why does it matter? He's like, this is what matters. Someone's like, Damon, can you come help me at my company do this thing? And then somebody else goes, I have an idea for a cybersecurity company. And then, that's the last phase. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. The last phase, after we do the news, everyone talks, we then go, all right, who has any concepts they're working on that might need help with? Someone's like, I have an idea for a thing. Here's my crazy idea that sits in my head that I never show people. And you're like, and I watch people, it's like a spiritual activity. I have literally watched people show up for the first time and sit there and they're like holding onto their chair trying to stay put. And all of a sudden they're like, I have one! And you're like, yeah! As it just like falls out of them. Like, I have never said this out loud. And it ranges from like in the positive core to like, I want to start a bakery. And then if there's less than 4 hands, we'll get into the details later, how you troubleshoot more than 4. But what you say is, hey, what next, guys? How do we help them? And it is so beautiful. That crew just dog piles on. Like, I know this person. Why? Because they want to look cool to their tribe. They want to be viewed as a contributor. And then second, there's also a part of them too that's a little greedy. And they think, if I help this person, maybe I'll get some other company. Because people are afraid, let's be honest. They're poor. There's nothing wrong with that. And if they add, we always say, look, we're a value for value community. If someone's really helping you, give them some value of your company, or of shares, or of something. Hire them, if you can. But also, don't take from people or steal either. Help first, give first. Jumping ahead, Story Summit. Story Summit is a 2-day experience where we use our fellows. We have over 200 mentors that come from the coolest companies in the world that are prepared just to fly into towns all around the country and tell stories about lessons they wish they knew about life and lessons they wish they knew about business when they were younger. We have a pitch day called Show and Tell. Just like when you're in elementary school, you're like, look at my little thing. It's about showing off art, it's about showing off film, it's about showing off software and hardware. And then at the end we have a feast called the Becoming Feast where you sit around and everyone stands up while they're eating and they say, I was inspired by this over the last 2 days. I want to be held accountable to this as I become this. And I'm going to choose this leadership pathway. The pathways in the design section are built around learning a new skill, reading books, working on your pitch, and developing yourself, a personal growth curriculum. All small group based. We deliver the curriculum to the people. And then finally we have Unwinds, which is like a monthly hangout where you bring your own whatever, water, soda, beer, you hang out at the beach, you hang out in the basement, you go to a backyard, go out on boats. And then finally, we have local experts where we bring in practitioners of key topic areas within the community. We elevate them in front of this nerd tribe and just grill them with questions. It's a good sales opportunity for the local community. And finally, Think Big Festival. Think Big Festival is an annual 3-day festival with a reception of all these 13 to 25-ish experts we usually bring in around the vertical. Reception, think tank the next day with the community to talk about the vertical and how it can map to the economy, the education system, and rally the community. And then there's a big tech carnival where everyone brings out little tables and booths, and it's like a show and tell on steroids. It's like 40 to 60 tables, and you're walking around, there's music, and you're getting to see all the cool things the town has been doing in their closets, and in their basements, and you're like, oh, we do things here, which we forgot we make things. And so it's cool for people to see, like, we do things in our place once a year. And then, after that, we have a speaker series the next day. And that speaker series is just panels of all those experts telling the community about the future, where it's going with long-term Q&A. And then usually we go to startup around the town, just for pitches and have food and drink at the different startups, and everyone hangs out, the speakers and the community. It is thousands of people that show up for these events. And we train and support the teams with all sorts of tools. We build a project management software, a wiki, our own iOS and Android apps, and a web app. We use Slack, G Suite, Facebook, Textly, Aweber, a whole stack of these things. And there's so much more that I can tell you about. I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning. So there's a slide up there, and then I'm going to take questions, and I want to end with a quick story. I have 15 minutes. We have 10 minutes for questions. I apologize, unless I can go over for a little bit. Let's just start with questions. I can go over for a little bit, too. He gave me a thumbs up. I don't know what that means. I'm going to go for it. Thank you, Jim. Are there any questions? Yeah. What was your name? Say it for everybody.
I'm Roz.
Hi, Roz.
From Utah, and I have a couple questions. So, just wondering, you touched on this a little bit, but if you could speak to how long your team is with a community, and you've been saying "we" a lot. Who are we in your company?
Yeah.
And how do communities usually contact you? Is it government, or who does that first?
It's a great question. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So there's a couple questions there. I'll start with how long, I think was the first one, we and who for government, or who contacts us. How long? We typically chart a 3-year launch process. And that unleashes the complete, in our opinion, that's a good amount of time to have a fully self-sustained ecosystem. What that means is a venture fund in place, having some sort of a campus that is offices, co-working. We have a whole level 1, level 2, level 3, and all the ways to do this. But you de-risk the campus, by the way, and the fund by building the nucleus first. But we see 3 years as the prime period. In that time frame, then there is corporate sponsors who go, whoa, this town of 5,000 people that's obsessed over this, the future of cats. Like, literally think about this. You could have a town of 5,000 people focused on the future of cats. Cats is mental health, it's pharma, it's fashion. That's so weird. It is hygiene. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Tell me where Cat Town is. Doesn't exist. Thank you. Great answer. So a town, though, if they focus on that, could you imagine having cat science fairs, invention conventions, and cat research around these specific health conditions? Let's talk about that weird parasite that we get from cats that they have higher suicide rates and higher accidents. You've never seen it. There's an NPR thing on it. It's really creepy. But people who have cats, you get it. And so there's all that. And so 3 years is a great period of time that you can build a whole campus and a fund and a relationship with corporates that go, whoa, we want to underwrite talent in this town. So they start sponsoring and it starts becoming this ecosystem. 3 years typically. The model of our team coming in, we actually only really come in on the front end and do the mapping, come up with a playbook, train the local 2 to 5 ecosystem leads that are already there, because it's so much better, because you already have trust and built relationships and heart. And then we take you through not only the immersion on site at one of our communities where we have a facility, where you get to go through our playbook, you take tests, you get accreditation, and then we have you in a weekly cohort meeting with people just like you who are rolling the process out across the nation in different communities with different opportunities instead of obstacles. I like that word. And so different opportunities to fight against, right? Mr. Monocle in the town is like, who are these people? What are they doing? And then this bureaucratic thing that tries to take the funds that you got. And so we navigate those in our calls. You can tell I've done this before, right? Not this, but I've been where you sit. And then additionally, after that, we then we launch the weekly cohorts and a monthly one-on-one with that practitioner in the town of each of the individuals. And we give you access to all the tools we have. You have our fellows, you got all that stuff as you build and develop it. And if you stay at level 1, which is just fireside chats and coffee and concepts in the first year, or if you break through to level 2, which then kicks off the summits, the festivals, the pathways, that's where additional grants or funding usually infused into the community to pay for those. And so you can start to staff up. And then level 3 is the real estate and the venture fund and everything else. So that answers the time frame question. And we never leave. We never leave. Usually we charge $25,000 as a down up front for the immersion and everything else, and then $2,000 a month. As long as the community says, yes, we appreciate the support, these access to the mentors, the tools, everything, cool. We'll keep showing up forever and supporting you on that same cadence forever. And it's a really fun model also for real estate development. Next question, who are we? We, ASOP Industries, is the parent company, have a board. I'm the founder and CEO there. Then we have our CFO and some strategy in that top. Then we have Innovation Collective, which is our services and strategy company for human flourishing. So ASOP Industries, we're a culture change company. We change culture. We crack the code. I firmly believe that. And then Innovation Collective is that strategy and how we support people in changing their culture to be around flourishing with economics and stronger civic engagement. IC Rebuild is our real estate asset management, development, acquisition company that we can come in and help. We can bring in investors, we can buy, we can build, we can support, we can design. We're working on high rises in big cities where they're empty right now. And they're installing, guess what, big buildings, they're installing this as an amenity to bring the people back in. Because they have no clue what to do because the little ponds and stupid stuff don't work. And like cappuccino machines because people are staying at home. And so we do the real estate one, and then the other one is called Realign Ventures because we're realigning capital with awesome humans. And Realign Ventures is a team of 3 partners. And then the last one is called Build Republic, buildcities.com. I can send all this out also through an email maybe to everyone else. But that's the we. Each of these are different teams of people. We have leaders in each of them, kind of run the teams. And then I help them and empower them because they are awesome humans, crushing it. And then contractors that work in the communities as well, and then also a bunch of practitioners. Who contacts us? Everyone. It doesn't matter. Sometimes it's like boomerang people that come back to the town. Sometimes it's the economic development people. Sometimes it's the college or a university. Sometimes it is a family office or foundation. Sometimes it's a real estate developer. We found that this model can serve a lot of people's interests because everyone has a different interest, right? A stronger tax base, a building that's flourishing. We want a more resilient economy. And so we found we have inbound in different areas. Yeah. Yes?
Good question.
What was your name?
John.
Hi.
I'm State Extension.
Cool.
You're focused in on like urban places.
Yeah.
A lot of us as Extension work in rural places. Have you done any innovation work in agricultural systems in places that are more of the open spaces theme that we have? And the other second question is, have you bumped into like long-standing codes of 30, 40, 50 years that people are not willing to change and they're trying to do things like what you're
Give me an example of a code. Because yes, we have, and we've changed some laws. Zoning, yeah. Great, thank you. So yes to rule. Like when we did the Inspire program with Apple, we went to 23 cities across the state of Idaho and set up 23 free coding schools. Include communities of like 2,000, very rural, very small. We've done work like communities of 12, 15,000 consistently like right now that we have programs in. All the way to larger ones. We're doing a project in Los Angeles. But that isn't just about hitting the whole city, by the way, it's a zone. I disagree with hitting a whole city. It's stupid. You can't. Like, that's just dumb. Focus on a part of the town. So that answers that question. We can go high, we can go low. But the process of appreciative inquiry and rallying humans to unleash their like nonsense and magic, hard stop, works anywhere. Whether or not you can build like a $1.2 billion infill real estate project with 2,000 apartments and a Topgolf and a $150 million concert venue, probably not in a town of 5,000 people. But like in the middle of Huntsville, Alabama, sure. Which is a project that's happening in there right now with Mid-City District. I don't know if anybody's from Alabama. It's super cool. We're involved with them talking about how do we program the culture across the campus. However, could you still have a small co-working space? Yeah, reactivate the post office, right? Or find a spot that way we can build. Can you still go to a big corporation and go, we're forget Cat Town, we're Dog Town, or like we're the future of this. And when I say confidence and nonsense, I mean it. Look where the money goes. It's really weird. And turn your people into creators, not consumers. It's a bad brand. Other question was about policy. Yeah, we bump up against a lot of policy. Tons of zoning. And when we do, we just go where the water flows. We had a mayor once actually change the rules because we were trying to do a big development downtown with a foundation. We bought a building, got a commitment to the one next to it, and we were working on taking down the whole block. And the buildings all look like garbage, by the way. They're not uniform in this community. And God love them, but they're not uniform. And so the proposal was, hey, if we can convince all the people down the block to join into like a group, let's do a big development that brings them back to their historic look, puts apartments on top, puts an old grocery store because of the original grocery store in town, and like let's try and honor the vibe of what the community wants. Instead, what happened was there's a bit of a freak out, and they stopped all new construction. Dead serious. So we listed the building, we sold it. We didn't leave. Instead, what we did is we went, all right, let's figure out what else we can do. And we respect that. And we understand that it got scary, and we love you. And so, we go where the water flows. And on policy-wise, we're getting ready to launch a cohort this fall. And there's a couple, it's with the Cooperative Extension Foundation and with 2 states. I don't know if I can announce the states. I won't, because I'm going to overstep my bounds. But we're working on pilots with Extension Foundation that also pair with a piece of legislation on the Senate floor from 2022 that is tagged to be in the Farm Bill. It's called National Innovation and Modern Skills Training Act, NIMSTA. That's my weird baby. I've been hammering that for 6 years when I found out about y'all. I was like, this is so cool. And the goal is that it basically takes capital and takes this model and then pushes it into extension, and it forces agencies to work right alongside of you for you to be the anchor of community and resource you and fund you to do this and maybe even staff up a bit. But it's a 10-state pilot to see, is this a cool bolt-on? And I know ECOP also recently said, hey, let's start looking at workforce and innovation as a potential pillar that we focus on. It doesn't mean you give up ag, but like, what does it mean to live flourishing lives in our communities and really unleash our people? That's really the heart of extension. That's core. And that is ag when we're 98% agrarian. It still can be ag, it still needs to be ag. But there are also other things as it's modifying. So imagine when this guy went to talk with APLU, how'd that go? Yeah, you're laughing because it's funny. It is. And so, yes, we've seen obstacles, and yes, we just smile and go, I love you, and we're trying to do the right thing. I'm sorry I said the wrong thing. I didn't mean to make your felt board people mad. And that lady again. And then she's like, I just learned not to be sad anymore. And just be like, I feel your fear. Because that lady's afraid. Yes. What was your name?
My name is Michael Wilcox with Purdue University.
Hey.
And I appreciated that you led with empathy and compassion. But when you have empathy and compassion on one level, you can have prejudice and discrimination on another level. Mm-hmm. And so you talk about cultural change in real estate.
Yep.
And I've been in Moscow since I've been out here. I've been at the Coeur d'Alene Reservation, and I've been in the city.
Sure.
And there are folks that are working on your model, and it's predicated by love. But there's others that are working in those 3 places, and it's predicated by hate. And so how do we as an extension system countervail the hate-filled effort to change culture and buy up real estate versus predicated by love and try to...
I love this. Such a great question, man. Thank you for this question. If I think I understand what you're saying, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying this is using an engine of change to try and unleash inclusive, look beyond race, color, gender, creed, sexual preference, political preference, and be like, you have magic in you, let's build real estate together. Part of our model, by the way, 15% of our venture capital returns go back into grants for the communities. And we're working on in Build Republic a way to score everyone for their contributions to their cities and make that it's a digital co-op. So the more you mentor people, the more you help people on projects, the more you attend events, you actually earn your economy. And we're working on that for real estate too, to take 15% of our real estate returns. So like, I'm with you. Like, we're trying to do the right thing, right? And then there's other people who are like, let's build boxes faster and squish people into workforce housing, right? Is that what you mean? Or like, let's...
When I was in Moscow, I know that there's businesses being put out of business by a certain group that wants to take over the town.
Oh, really? Are they like...
And I understand from being on the reservation yesterday that it's 2-to-1 non-native to native.
Okay, good. So, fantastic question. We're almost at time. I think I get 5 extra minutes, right? You said? I'll steal them. My answer to this question, what was your name again from Mr. Purdue?
Michael Wilcox.
Michael.
I'm wondering how we can countervail.
Yes. My answer to this question is this. I believe people are going to do what they believe is in their best interest and drives the best returns, like the money. I truly believe that. That's what I've seen, right? I weirdly have been in like some of the most far, like, crazy rooms. Like I've met with Noam Chomsky and then met with like the Walton's economists in the same week. Like that makes no sense and are like very divergent, and yet like I'm still in the place of empathy of trying to figure out like how do you dance the dance between the two, right? And so my belief is those people who are going to do it because it's full of like fear is how I view it. I don't view it as hate, I actually view it as fear. I think majority of most bad behavior is fear. And so if they're afraid and they want to push people out or make their thing this or that, I just want to show them a better way. And we freaking got it. Which is about, hey, far left that wants people to be empowered and wants people to have more resources and support. We got a model that helps do that. And I'm actually working on an end game of how do you re-architect a lot of taxation to turn into grants that can go directly to the people to work on their projects. Think of it like a project-based income, a PBI versus a universal-based income at a level 1 that has no requirement. If you just show up and you're like, I got a thing, and then get corporate impact dollars to go into that as well, because it'll get a better return for corporates, because it's people working on projects that they need done as research and development, and lets communities hack on these as kids and adults. So I just believe we need to show them a better way to unleash people. So the left, it's like, that's a cool model. For the right, what you say to the right, and people are afraid, I'm not saying that these people are right or left, because I could probably assume, but I'm not going to pretend. And so, like, let's say it's the right, and the right are like, hey, you know, we want less government, and we want, you know, less taxation. And people, you know, those people in communities who are doing drugs, they're just bad people, and, you know, we should lock them up, or whatever. Okay. You go, wait, what if there was a way that we could get them to pick a project with agency, and to gather in community and start to change behavior because they're proud and they're standing up, and we're going to give private dollars that go directly into helping support these projects, and we could even potentially re-architect some federal dollars to support their agency-based projects. And these are things that maybe someday you could commercialize. You'd be developing talented people and projects, and the right's like, well, that sounds neat. Especially when they look at what's going on right now, because it's kind of a hot mess. And so my comment to that is, first look at the people who are doing the bad things. Take a step back and go, maybe they just don't see a better story. Maybe we need like a better story for society, and they can see how they fit into it. Because a lot of the narratives that are being pitched to people are about, we're going to do this, you're bad, go away. It will not work. We got to have a big old bonfire and be like, all right guys, let's rally around this thing, and let's figure out a better way to reimagine how we activate flourishing in people that includes the right and the left, that includes those who are, you know, God forbid. I look at people who are hateful, spiteful, racist, bigots. It sucks. We got to have room for them at the bonfire to like get some healing, a little kumbaya juice, and like figure out how they can fit themselves into a better story and find redemption. So I'm big on that, and that's what we're pushing, and that's why this piece of legislation is even bipartisan. Very proud of that. So that's what I think about. And even for developers, our building, higher price per square foot. We bought also in Nevada, we bought a 250,000 square foot Home Depot. We're doing 248 apartments in the parking lot. We have Burning Man's makerspace in there, and it's no longer called workforce housing, we're calling creative force housing. Because it comes with this whole like system, so it unleashes like the next you. And one of our investors is one of the largest pension funds in the world. Why? Because they believe in this? No, because they came out and they're like, you should turn this into storage units. My response was, does the world really need more storage units? And this guy who's the head of investment there had his son with him. And I was like, how do you feel about storage units, man? He's like, I feel like people have too much shit. I was like, yeah, me too. I was like, wouldn't it be cool if you came here, there's a makerspace, and apartments, like a college, and a theater, and a food hall, and all these events going on? He's like, yeah. And all of a sudden you could see the dad, he's like, I'm screwed. And so the other comment though was, and this is what really got me over the hump, by the way, and I'll end with this story. I'm almost at my 5 minutes. I also stopped and then said to him, you ever read Blue Ocean Strategy? It's a book that's all about red oceans are where all the blood's in the water because everyone's fighting over price. A blue ocean is when you come up with something brand new. You can charge what you want. You own the market, you're the preferred leader because you're floating around in a blue ocean. So this very intelligent man from the world's largest pension fund, one of them, I won't say which one it is, but it's very large, who's the head of their real estate investments, I said, storage units are kind of a competitive market, aren't they? Yeah, they're there. Do you think it'd be worth taking a bet on my weirdness and like my development partners? And if we made this thing work, have you ever seen one of these out there? No? Huh? If we crushed it, don't you think everyone would want to give us their big boxes? And don't you own a bunch of those too? And what if this was a higher price per square foot? What if we could cut you in on the venture capital returns that come out of the community? And what if it had a better impact on like education and outcomes? And plus, this is in like a lower class part of town where a lot of Tongans live, in Sparks. The joke in Reno is, Reno's so close to hell you can see Sparks. That's where we bought the building. And he goes, yeah! And all of a sudden, ESG and DEI are no longer theatrics, right? You've actually shown how doing the right thing might actually be profitable. And so, like, I'm just a big believer we can't, like, force people to, like, drink the Kool-Aid! Because it's the right thing to do. They will always find a tax loophole. They will always find another haven. They will always find another way around you. Show a better story, and this is it. And it starts with activating people, and then having the structure with the economics behind it that makes sense. I'll end with this quick story, and then I'll let you come kick me off. And because it's important. Oh, you have a question? I'll hang out, I promise. Unless you'll let me, can I take more questions or no? I don't know. I'm okay. You can tell me no, there's hands up. I'll stay for like an hour.
We have one question, and then please stick around because,
Okay.
you know.
One quick question, because I have to tell the story because it has an ear. Yes. Aaron.
I work in Appalachia.
Cool.
A lot of people that I work with don't have access to safe water
Yes.
or food.
Yep.
So how do you make space in your process for folks that are working 3 jobs or
Yeah.
have a lot of other concerns to take time to have coffee?
No,
Part
100%.
of the story.
100%. 100%. I think the first thing is using this process to address their highest, most critical needs, right? So like water. You get people together to say, hey, look, we have a real problem. So a positive core in that community, in my opinion, where's stakeholder support, where's the better story, where's the industry? Water, hard stop. Another example is we've been working with a mining company up in Canada that's working with some First Nations. Suicide rate is bonkers up there. I think it's a circadian rhythm issue because they're so close to the sun stays up. Plus they're in like a bad community where there's not a lot to do and there's like lots of gaming, right? And they build a good youth center at the First Nations place and like no one shows up. So our answer to that one was, hey, let's align the problem of suicide with sleep and then get you guys a partner with CERTA. Let's make this the world's leading lab on the future of sleep. You guys can use the IP for all your people in the mining to help them sleep better on the sites. And also let's get the underwriting from CERTA. So you align funding from industry to local problem, which again, remember I said problems are opportunities, right? So I like to say we're in a cohort that deals with opportunities. So I'd look at that and go, let's focus on water. Let's start this around the future of water. And let's make those damn corporations that have made water so expensive fix this problem with us. So that's where I would start. Does that make any sense? Maybe. I can unpack it more if it helps. But you should, okay, no, I would love to, honestly. He only said one question. And then, just to emphasize the final thing, at Think Big Festival, we give out an award, and that award is the most nonsensical idea in the community. For the person that came up with a complete garbage idea that's actually viable. They're like, wow, that would make no sense. You're like, whoa, it's now a company. And I won't tell the full story, but the short story is this. Kid shows up, girlfriend won't marry him because he's unstable, can't keep a job. He invents this idea, he has a coffee concept, shares it, goes on, becomes one of the main companies that now employs like 70 plus people, has hundreds of patents, multi-$100 million company, stopped the brain drain in one of the communities. And we've given him an award. The award comes from a very conservative man that some would say is on the wrong side of the fence. However, the guy is also the one who created space travel, private space travel, and the first plane to fly around the world without ever stopping or refueling. His name is Bert Tan. He's a dear friend of mine. He's a mentor of mine. And Bert has a statement that is, if you want, he's a Times Man of the Year. He's one of all his awards. He says, if you want to have a true breakthrough in innovation, you must have confidence in nonsense. So every year in our communities, we celebrate the most nonsensical person. We put them on a stage, we cheer for them, and we give them Bert's ear and his sideburn. And people put this proudly on their desk of this bronzed ear, of this man's ear, and it is all across this nation. And when I say we are long on nonsense, I mean it. We are long on nonsense. Because I'll tie this back to answering her question even farther. Even in these communities where people are working 3 jobs and they're struggling to get by, they still do something for fun because they need to. And you can find little ways to implement something that gives them a little bit of hope and a better version of fun by letting them play with nonsense that leads them to the life that they really want and they really hope. And I know it's hard in these communities, and some need more support. And that's where corporations can step in earlier. You start to subsidize and underwrite their nonsense. But there is a path forward where play and nonsense and creativity can be infused back into our work, and it will truly revolutionize our country. I will send you the ebook. I will send you all the things. I really appreciate you guys letting me talk to you because I am so long on the work you do. I really, really mean that. And please let me be like a partner of yours because I want to empower you. I love the work, the trust you have, the relationships you build, the system as a whole. And I really mean this. I have spent my life working with little kids all around the world, different countries, in schools. I have done funerals for high school kids who committed suicide over speeding tickets. I was a pastor for a long time. And all I can say is this. We're in a hot mess. And I just really want to build the tools and the systems and the games and re-architect the machine so that capitalism and communities can be in harmony again. And I really believe there's a shot on goal, and I think you're a key part of it. So thank you, and I'll shut up now.